Let's talk about labor. And I'm curious, you said earlier that we shouldn't be at full staff in the police department. We should be instead be spending some money, I think you said, on prevention and other programs in the city. If our full staffing is 441, what number are you comfortable with in the police officers
I'm not saying we
segment
shouldn't be at full staffing. Obviously, that's the goal, but in tough financial times, you don't work to get full staffing in any particular department because everyone should be feeling the pain of budget cuts.
So in the next year or two,
If the economy picks up and the money comes in, absolutely, we should be working toward full staffing.
but given the projections that are there now for the next year or two, Chief Morris said before he retired that he expected he could lose another 5 to 10 in addition to the ones he's already
They should be
down.
filled.
Those should be filled?
Absolutely. The retirement should be filled.
So there shouldn't be a hiring freeze at the police department right now?
I don't believe there should be a hiring freeze necessarily there. I think you need to look at every particular class of employees critically. The employees that are bringing in money, that are checking on business licenses, that are following the permit center, bringing in fees, actually out there working in the community to raise revenue, we should look at that very critically. The grant writers who are bringing in grant funding, if they are actually producing grant monies, they certainly pay for themselves. I think we should look at each position critically. But I think we should not go lower in the police department than we are now if it can be avoided. And I don't necessarily know, again, I don't know that the freeze is the actual way. Freeze makes it, I would rather leave vacancies open rather than freezing everything.
Oh, we were just talking about labor in the police department.
I think you need a full police force. I've said that. I haven't heard anything differently, except now she's answered on both sides of the question, so I'm not really sure where she is. I'm telling you. Well, I'm just telling, I don't know where you are. You don't want to do it, you want to do it. You're not sure if the freeze is the right thing. I'm saying, and I'm willing to say, and I have said publicly, that we should have a full complement of police officers, regardless of what impact that has on the total budget. You know, when I was on the school board, the employee groups that were not the teachers were always struggling for that profound respect that employee unions want to feel, as compared to the teachers. I'm sorry, folks, the people who deliver the service in an educational system are teachers. Okay, in a city, one of our primary responsibilities is public safety. That is on the top of every citizen's list as they fear, as they do, that crime is closing in around them. So all I'm saying is whatever we have allocated in terms of positions in the police department, I would like to not see them frozen. I would like to see them filled. All of the other issues notwithstanding, the raises, the benefits, the this and the that, I think we need to have a full complement of police officers. It's a matter of our commitment to public safety as being number one. That does not taint my opinion about prevention. I believe that we must do much, much more, but not at the expense of those positions in the police department.
See, and my position really is that the current full force is based upon a budget that's got, quicksand under it. So how do you, in fact, fill all of the budgeted the budgeted positions when you don't have the money to do that? So I believe that what the very least you can do is maintain what you have right now and keep them working. And that means that if many officers retire, we need to be able to backfill those. We don't need to decrease the police force. I'm simply saying, given the financial situation, we can't responsibly increase it significantly because of the amount of money it takes from the budget. So we have to be thinking about how we can do more with less or with what we have and think of it in those terms. And maybe that's just the way I look at life and look at business and how you manage money.
I think you can offer to do less with more in some areas, not with police officers. We were within 8 of having a full complement. We need to get back there. We need to get all the way to a full complement. I can't say it any plainer than that.
What do you think about the SDO's claim that it's due a 15.3% pay raise? And was the 2005 agreement that called for something more than 9.5, or they claim does, was that a sound agreement, or do you wish that hadn't been signed that way?
No, I wish it had not been signed that way. I was amazed. That was my first experience with collective bargaining at the city. And I was amazed to see how it worked. I was amazed to see that the council really didn't play much role in it, that it was pretty much something that the city manager did. I was appalled because on the school board we were integrally involved in negotiations. We set the parameters, and then we periodically got updates from staff as they were negotiating, and if they needed more authority they had to get it from the council. Here it was remarkable. The most remarkable thing about most of our MOUs, pretty consistently through the years, that they have a bottom to them, regardless of revenue, and that's going to change. We're, again, lessons learned. We're not going to have any, at the very least you get 2%. Well, if your revenue hasn't grown 2%, you can't get 2%. That's the way that works. School districts are a little simpler because COLA is a little clearer, but we will deal with all of that at the table. There's no doubt about it. There's a difference. The MOU was not absolutely clear on the methodology to arrive at what the raise had to be. So the police think that it's 15, the council does not, and at some point that'll get settled.
Why didn't you object to the agreement at the time?
Candidly, a little bit of, I did object, I just didn't vote against it. I objected strenuously when I was briefed, the way that we were handled in those days, and it was my first year on the council. So I'm going to beg a little bit of a learning curve situation. Even though I had a lot of experience with bargaining, this was so different. I thought maybe I was missing something. But we used to be briefed individually. We were not briefed as a council in closed session, which is permissible. And that probably was so that two people couldn't have a good idea and get a little steam going. I was amazed. I said it was the most. It was something I was unaccustomed to, and I kind of deferred to the to the majority thinking. There didn't seem to be a lot of angst about it on the council, and so I went along with something that, candidly, in retrospect, was not a good. It was not a good agreement. It was good for the union. I give them credit, but it was an effort on the part of the city manager to buy some labor peace in the short term, and when you try to do that, you always get what we got, which is stuck in the long term.
And let me ask you about civilian employees. You did say before the primary that civilian employees' benefits and pay package probably should be increased, and that they have been suffering for a few years in terms of what they get. How should their packages be increased, and how do you do that given the financial crisis?
You may not do it this year. You may not do it next year. But given whatever the economic situation is, I think we really have to tie any increases to income, to a scale that makes more sense than just a standard cost of living across the board. I think this is the time, probably in cities throughout the state, where people are re-examining how they're negotiating and what they're tying increases to. And I think that's healthy and important because, even when I was on the council, we looked at labor agreements that were maybe 2% one year, 3% the next year, but they were never tied to income. And that's a key part. As a business person, we do all projections based upon anticipated income, and it's critical that we start thinking more like private industry when we do this. So labor peace is always something you wish for, but part of the issue is really for a mayor and a council to really ask those hard questions about, well, what's the real cost of this going to be? When I was on the council, I remember getting spreadsheets that basically took out the cost of employee contracts for a number of years out into the future so that we had a sense, at least based upon best guesswork, how much those labor agreements were going to cost us. And so I think we need to examine the whole scenario and how all of this is put together as we move forward in these difficult economic times, because we're not going to be able to give increases. We're going to be lucky to maintain jobs. And I think when it comes down to it, labor unions, by and large, want to keep jobs and are willing to negotiate with people in terms of the rest of the package. But if they can, everyone I've talked to, and frankly, not the police department, I've not talked to the police department about this, but the other unions, including fire, are very concerned about maintaining jobs. And they're willing to sit down and talk and negotiate and figure out how we can work through this whole process.